get out there and let's do as much as we possibly can.
Yep. Good.
Okay, so should we start?
Yep. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome back. I'm Ed Andrew. This is Human Impact, and today is a huge pleasure to be joined by Jack Canfield. Jack, welcome to the show.
My pleasure, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure indeed. Now, Jack, first question, and we've got so many different places to go, is at the moment, many people I speak to, and I'm sure you do as well, who are concerned in their businesses about whether they can continue to market and what the difference is between business as usual or with changing messaging and profiteering. There's actually not a balance because profiteering is way on one side and business as usual is on the other. But there's a lot of, I think, fear as to what messaging should I put out there. So and I know that your business is obviously being impacted because you're a seminar and speaker. So what's your view on that?
Well, I have a lot to say about it. First of all, I'll start with our own experience. I'm a speaker and a trainer, and we also have online trainings. So in the speaking part, I've had to cancel some of my engagements because people can't gather together. So big conventions and things like that. We've all agreed to, like, whenever they do it, reschedule it, that I'll come and I'll speak. So I haven't had to return deposits in that area, but I haven't been able to collect the second half of the fee. So that's had an impact. For our trainings, we've had to push them out into the future, losing some people because they can't do those dates, or they're afraid to travel in the future now. Everything's, no one's clear what's going to really happen. Yeah. So we had like $750,000 of deposits for different trainings we were doing. And we've had to say to people, we're going to give you some free trainings between now and then where you would show up for the live trainings. That's meant that about 89% of people have said, yes, keep my deposit. We're not going to ask you to send it back right now. But we had to call each person individually. In one of our trainings, we called 50 people, one by one, maybe like 10 a day for 5 days, getting into communication with them. I think a lot of people, when you don't communicate what's going on and how you can be of service and what you need and how you can help them, they tend to assume the worst. That's human nature, it seems. So I think being in communication is a big deal. Also, with our online trainings, we've found that our sales have gone up in that arena because people now realize they have time to sit in front of their computer or their cell phone or whatever and actually do the work they've been thinking about. Nightingale Conant, which is a huge audio CD and tape and download company, told me once that only 17% of the programs they ever sent out ever got listened to. That was pretty amazing when you think about it.
It's the average statistic in the online education industry is between 15 and 18%. It's frightening.
There you go. 17% was their statistic. So basically now we have, I teasingly say we all have shelf esteem. We got lots of books and tapes on our shelves.
Look at all your books. Yeah.
Exactly. So basically it's a good time to do that. So we're recommending people do, and we've been marketing that just through our normal email channels. Now, the other thing, I think, there's a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. You may have heard of him. He wrote a book called Jab, Jab, Right Hook, or at least he talks about that concept. And the idea being that you give something for free, and then you can sell something. And I think what we've been doing right now is just doing a lot of free webinars for people. We haven't stopped some of our online campaigns, but we're supporting all these graduates and people on our mailing list and people through Facebook and people that are just coming to us. Like I did a seminar the other day called the Success Principles Masterclass. We had 3,000 people sign up. About 2,000 people actually showed up. Wow. And it was an hour and a half. We got great feedback. I didn't try to sell anything. It was just called, here's a gift to you. One of my friends, Colin Sprake, who runs entrepreneurial trainings up in Canada, he's now in his third week. He instantly pivoted and said, okay, we're not going to sell anything for a while. Let's give away stuff. So he's been interviewing an expert every week. People like myself, people like Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, people like Lisa Sasevich, who's an online marketing expert and so forth, back of the room sales. And bringing in people to show all these people that are in his downline, not his downline, but his community, and then inviting them to invite other people. So what's happening is it started out with about 900 people the first week. The second week, they were up to about 2,000. Now they're up to about 4,000. And so he's building his list, but he's not trying to sell them anything right now. But
Sure.
people are just seeing, here's a guy who cares. He's bringing me value. So while you may not be monetizing in the moment, you're building a brand identity that says this person cares about me. They're going to support me when times are tough. So when he does go to sell them something, and I think this weekend he's putting up what he calls a gift basket where anyone can contribute things from the people he's interviewed, because he hasn't let any of us sell anything. But there'll be free gifts that lead people to our websites to get those, which will build our list, which then you can sell to later. So now there are other people. I'll give you an interesting example. There's a guy that spoke on that program, because I listened to it the first week because I was going to be a guest the last day. I want to get a feel for it. He had a gymnasium, a fitness center where people would come, and all of a sudden everything shut down. You can't go out, you can't gather in groups. And so he started using a meditation technique, and he basically realized in this meditation that he's got all these machines. It's a resource he has. So what he did was he sanitized all the machines, called up all his clients and said, I can bring a machine to your house. I'll rent it to you during this period. He's actually making as much money on the rentals as he was on the memberships, where the people can't come and some people canceled and all that. So he's doing very, very well. But you have to look and ask yourself, is there some way I can deliver what I do? Now, it's easier for those of us who are coaches, who are speakers, who are doing online courses. But if you're a brick and mortar store, you have to pivot. How do you do that? Another company is they do patio furniture primarily, umbrellas and barbecues and all that. And so what they've done is they've called all their clients from the past and said, look, you're probably not going to go on a vacation in June because you're going to be staying at home because you're afraid to travel. So why not take this opportunity to spend the vacation money you would have spent on re-upping your patio and your deck, because you're going to be spending a lot of time on it at home. And so what they do is you take your cell phone or your computer, you go out, you show them the deck, think about things. They show you things they think it would work for you. You look at fabrics online, you measure and you tell them the measurements right there. They can see things. And then you order the furniture, and then they deliver it outside, put it on your patio. No one ever touches anybody. Everybody wins. So there's a lot of ways to shift and to revector. Another woman who didn't think she had any skills other than being able to be at home and be a mom and clean, but realized that her husband was out of work. She said she called up all these local companies and said, you're all empty right now. I would come in and clean. I'll super sanitize and clean all your high-tech equipment, your doorknobs, your security, everything. And she's got more business than she can handle right now. So it's a matter of getting creative. eBay, I see everyone selling stuff on eBay to get money. Well, another woman started a business in her town where I'll pick up your stuff that you want to sell on eBay. I'll take it to UPS. If it's a dresser or something big, I'll figure out how to package it, get it shipped across the country, whatever it might be. And people are paying her a fee for that. Even though they're making money on the stuff, they still have to pay the shipping and do all that. They don't know how to do it. They don't have the bubble wrap or the expertise, whatever. So there are ways to generate income.
Yeah, fantastic. And Jack, I just want to say you are a master storyteller. I have listened to the Success Principles, and I enjoyed Ruben Gonzalez also came on the show, and he tells me about how he met you, and that's something I'll get into later. He's also a great storyteller, but you really are. I could just sit here quite happily and listen. I don't have to ask you very much.
Well, thank you for that.
So thank you. But one question around that is, I think one of the things that you and I no doubt see with many of these marketers at the moment is some haven't changed their messaging at all. They're still focusing on the pain point. And to me, certainly, I feel that focusing on a pain point now is wrong. We want to focus on how we can add value and solve a problem for them in a positive light, not this 80%, which is out there of always, because marketers always know that you sell more to the pain than you do to the luxury. But at this stage of the game, I think if you don't change that, your brand's going to suffer remarkably, isn't it?
Right. I've never been a big fan of selling from fear. And, a friend of mine runs a program called Heart Sell rather than Hard Sell. And if you have something that's of value to people, and it really is, and you can share what the value is, share the benefits, share the destination, as they say, without having to address the pain point and overkill it, and as many people do, I think that's a better way to go. I think it's a better way to go all the time, quite frankly, but it's certainly a better way to go now. I think there's enough fear on the planet. There's enough pain. You don't have to like, I remember the joke about the guy who goes into the doctor and he says, everywhere I touch, doctor, it hurts. If I touch my head, it hurts. If I touch my nose, it hurts. If I touch my chest, it hurts. He says, tell you why, is the pain is in your finger. That's why.
I like that.
But the point is, there's plenty of pain out there. I don't think we need to exacerbate and create more. And we know that when you're in fear, no matter who's creating it, an advertiser, a marketer, or just the general pandemic that's going on, your immune system goes down. When you're in fear, the energy goes to the amygdala in the middle part of your brain, which is the fear part, hijacks the prefrontal cortex. So you can't think rationally and you can't think creatively and you can't have spiritual thoughts. And so what happens is when you're in that fight or flight, which always comes from fear, you either get, afraid and you run, or you get afraid and you want to fight. And so what happens is, used to be when you got afraid, there was a tiger there and you had to run from the tiger. Well, when you get in that state, all the blood and all the energy goes to your extremities so you can fight, or your legs so you can run. Because your body doesn't care at that point if you have a virus or a bacteria in your body, because if you don't outrun the tiger, it's toast anyway. So it shouldn't just stay there and say, let's keep our immune system strong while the tiger's coming close. So when we're in fear of anything, and we can talk about how to deal with that in a second, is we want to make sure that we instantly move out of that into a place of neutrality or a place of positivity. Because when we're in a place of positivity, what's called the rest state, what happens is your immune system says, oh, now we can go to work. And that's why it basically puts you on your ass when you get a virus, because it wants you to stay in bed, not move around, so it can do what it does at 100%. It gives you a fever, raises your temperature, the temperature fights off the virus, which is why we have a infrared sauna. We're going in there about every 3 days and raising our temperature up, because if there's a virus around, it's going to help kill that off. That's why people are getting fevers. So anyway, fear is always self-created by imagining something in the future that hasn't happened yet. And so even if there was a snake in your office right now,
there was one yesterday just in the garden where I nearly trod on it, actually, but that's a different story.
Yeah, but let's say you're sitting on your outside and the snake's moving its way across the garden toward you. In order for you to be scared, you'd have to imagine the future where it bites you. Because right now it's just moving. And so you have to go into the future to experience fear. And so basically you want to bring people back to the present moment. Now, there are some people that are very much compromised. There are some people that are very much suffering from the death of loved ones or people that are sick. You mentioned your mother, I think, in
Italy, yeah.
And so, that's to be rationally concerned due to things she's doing, which is not going out. You mentioned that her husband is going out every 10 days and buying food. And other than that, they're staying sequestered, which makes sense if you're old. Like me, I'm 75, so I'm staying at home, and taking all the right vitamins and herbs that I've been told about, and I've done research on that and what happens if I get it. So I'm done. I'm just not going to do what I do. But what we want to do is come to the present moment and realize everyone listening to this is probably healthy, has food in the refrigerator, food in the pantry, and has things to do. Especially people that listen to these kind of podcasts tend to be people that are intelligent, are writing things, have a lot to read, have many projects going, have hobbies, and play the piano, whatever it is. So the point being, focus on the present moment. What I've been teaching are the 5 M's. M for mindfulness. Every day, every hour, set your little cell phone or whatever to go off every hour, and then just stop and say, okay, take a moment. How's my body feel? Am I too tense? Am I sitting here too long at my computer? Breathe, do some breathing exercises, maybe get up and stretch, drink some water, go to the bathroom, pay attention, be mindful of what's going on. Be mindful of how you feel. If you're feeling scared, uptight, tense, whatever, then you're probably thinking thoughts that are creating that. So replace your thoughts. Meditation. We all should be meditating at least for 20 minutes a day right now to raise our vibration. Because when your vibration goes up into joy, compassion, gratitude, happiness, love, what happens is you're actually better off at fighting off a virus, number one. And number two, you're just going to experience yourself better as we go through this. I was listening to Bruce Lipton, who wrote Biology of Belief the other night, and was talking about this. He said, I know I'm not going to get sick. I'm too healthy. I eat all the right food. I don't smoke. I don't drink. I exercise. I'm meditating regularly. I know what vitamins and supplements to take so that I can fight off the viruses. For example, mushrooms, reishi mushrooms.
Mm.
There's research that shows. So I take these little mushroom capsules every
Yep.
day. You know, vitamin D, vitamin C, NAC, you know, all these different things you can do. If you
Zinc
do
is a good one as well.
take zinc, I'm taking zinc, I'm taking elderberry. You know,
Mm.
we could probably go back and forth with all the good things to do. We could do that if you want. But, you know, it makes sense to be preventative. Um, and then, so we got mindfulness and meditation, movement. Whenever you're
Mm.
moving, you're doing two good things. You're moving the lymph system, which is detoxifying the body, which only moves when you move. You're also in the present moment. When you're dancing, friends of mine the other night threw a virtual dance party. They hired a DJ. He was up in one little square of the Zoom. And then they had about 25 people all dancing in front of their computers. They were drinking wine. I'm not drinking right now. I don't want to compromise my immune system anymore. Not eating sugar, etc. But anyway, the point being, they had a great time together. People are doing virtual dinner parties, etc. So movement's good. It also raises your body temperature, and you're in the moment. The next one is mastery. Anything you're good at, if you do it right now, playing the piano, playing the guitar, oil painting like my wife does, that just, you're in the moment doing the thing you love to do that you're good at, or getting better at it. You know, like I love to make PowerPoint slides. That's kind of my, or actually I do, you know, but that's my art form. So I'm going out on the internet now, finding free pictures and creating really, I found one the other day. I had to do not a TED talk, but a podcast for some friends. They were doing a fundraiser online, and I called it Chicken Soup for the Quarantine Soul. And I found a picture of a chicken noodle soup, you know, where they have the
Yeah.
little letter, you know, alphabet soup. And in the spoon, it said COVID-19
Oh,
with the little in
how
the
cool
background.
is that?
When I found that, I was so happy. You know, it was like, Eureka, this is too cool. So doing something I love to do takes
Mm.
my mind off everything and makes me feel high and all that kind of stuff. The last M is meaningful communication, being in contact with people. So I imagine you're communicating with your mother in Italy, and you're communicating with your friends, and I'm communicating. Today was my oldest son, who's 45 today, his birthday. So we spent 20 minutes online with him and his wife and my grandson. And we're reaching out to my middle son, who's literally living in a windowless apartment up in the Berkeley area. He's a
Oh
DJ.
dear. Oh, and a
He's living,
DJ. Okay. Well,
he's living a very kind of like, you know, alternative
yeah,
lifestyle,
sure.
but he can't get out, you know.
Yeah.
So we're calling him every day. And so make sure that we're talking to people about the real things. You know, it's not a time to be looking good. It's a time to be authentic and real and transparent, and admit when you're feeling scared or whatever, so you can hopefully be talked out of it, and also have meaningful, so you're not isolating. So those are the 5 M's I've been talking about with people.
Well, there's so many places we can go on from there, Jack. But the one thing which strikes me when I read the book and the way that you talk is that as a coach, you have a very formulaic approach to breaking down problems and actually teaching. So just one point on that, I think hopefully the days of preaching, in other words, telling people what they should do, are now over. And the days of teaching are now going to come back, which is, I sincerely hope that. But you do have this very structured approach. Is that something that is natural or something which is learned?
Well, I've always been a natural teacher, I think. Even when I was in high school, I was like the head of my Christian youth fellowship group. I was the Boy Scout leader. And when I was in college, I would have been the president of my fraternity, but I had a beard and they didn't want anyone with a beard to go to the national conference, so they made me the vice president. And then I taught high school for a number of years, and I started teaching teachers. And, you know, I love this phrase: people are looking for a guide by the side, not a sage from the stage. And I think that, you know, if you can just share your honest experience with people, this is what's worked for me. This is what's worked for the 1 million or so students I've taught around the world. So it probably worked for you too. And I think being a good storyteller is something I did probably learn over time. I you know, stories have middles, beginning, and end. I've edited over 21,000 Chicken Soup for the Soul stories. We have 200.
Wow.
Before I sold the company, we had 250 books in the series, and each one had 100 stories.
That's
So you do the
staggering.
math. So I kind of learned what makes a story work and what doesn't. People are looking for what I call the chicken soup moment.
Yeah.
You know, what is that? I'll share one with you, which is interesting because I was doing a talk yesterday with some people about how to get through this coronavirus. And one of the things I was teaching, one of the principles that's in the Success Principles workbook is ask. And, you know, ask for what you want. Ask, 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 ask. I've been teaching everyone you have to become an asshole. You really want to be out there asking, and don't worry about being too much of an asker. You know, ask like a kid. Kids are always saying, Mom, can I have a cookie? No. Mom, please, can I have a cookie? No, you can't have a cookie. Mom, come on, I'm starving to death. No. Mom, my blood sugar's so low, I'm probably going to faint. No. It'll ruin your appetite. Mom, I promise I'll eat everything. Please give me cookie. All right, here's a cookie. You know, so we can learn to ask like a kid. But I was sharing the story of Marquita Andrews, who we wrote about in our first Chicken Soup for the Soul book, who was a little Puerto Rican girl living in New York. Her mother was a waitress. And so, you know, she made tip money and wasn't getting very, very rich. And Marquita was a Girl Scout, and she was selling Girl Scout cookies one year. And her mother came to her and she said, Marquita, I just want to tell you something so you know this growing up. Marquita was 11 at the time. She said, you know, I always wanted to send you to college and save enough money so you could be the first girl in the history of the family to go to college. But I also have another dream, which is I want to travel around the world. And I don't see how I can support both dreams with the tip money I make as a waitress. So, you know, I just wanted you to know that I'm on your side. I want to help you, but also I have this dream. So Marquita starts selling Girl Scout cookies. Now, here's how most Girl Scout cookies get sold. Hi, you can see by my uniform, I'm selling Girl Scout cookies this year. Would you buy some Girl Scout cookies to help our troop? Yeah, I'll take a box. Here's Marquita. Hello, you can see by my uniform, I'm a Girl Scout. We're having our annual cookie drive this year, and I have a dream that I want to share with you. My mom, more than anything, wants to go around the world, and I also want to go to college, and she told me the other day she's only going to have enough money to do one of those things. And this year, the Girl Scouts have a contest. The girl who sells most cookies wins a trip for 2 around the world, and I want to give that to my mom so bad. How many boxes will you buy to support me in my dream? People would go like, well, will 20 help? You know, it's like... So,
I love that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's brilliant, beautiful.
but it has that chicken soup moment at the end where it just catches you off guard, you know, and that's kind of one of the things I think that makes a story a good story. So I've studied that. I've studied how to use humor in a talk and all that. But I think the thing about the book that's so powerful is that think about this. If you had a lock and it had a combination lock on it, you know, the combination, you can unlock any lock and, you know, you'll unlock it. Anybody can do it. You can tell a 10-year-old the combination, 10-year-old will come up and do it. You can tell an older person, someone who's only got an IQ of 29 probably can do it. However, if you miss one number, if you don't know one of the numbers, I don't care how many times you turn that, it's never going to work. If you have the numbers in the wrong order, it's never going to work. So many people are out there working really hard. They've taken some seminars, they've read some books, they're doing certain things, but they're still not getting the result because they're missing some of the numbers. So what I attempted to do in the first book, the Success Principles book, was to give people the combination of success. Interviewed 75 of the most successful people and said, here's what's made me successful. These are my principles. Have they applied for you? And if so, how? Found out there were universal principles that all successful people use. Just to give you an interesting update, I just wrote a foreword for a book called The Billionaire Secret. This guy interviewed 21 billionaires, Raphael Badziag, and he found one thing I was surprised by. He interviewed 21 billionaires from 17 different countries. Every single one but one, they were in age about 35 to 81. They all got up between 4:30 and 5:30 in the morning. They all meditated and they all exercised. I mean, it didn't matter what, if the guy was going to get a 4:30 private jet plane, his own private jet, he would get up at 2:30 and exercise for an hour before he'd go to get his plane. So these people have energy, they're thinking, they're waking up. Many of them doing what I call the hour of power in the morning, 20 minutes of reading, 20 minutes of meditation, 20 minutes of exercise. And so what's in my book, the workbook that we now have, the Successful Workbook, is the exercises that I do with people in my coaching programs and in my live seminars, because we were noticing people in the live seminars and people in our coaching program were getting the results, whereas people that read the book, many people were, because they actually did what was in the book, but most people read the book, go, that's really cool, that's entertaining, that was inspiring, and then they don't do it. And so this
Yeah.
workbook is a coach between the covers of a book. It takes you lockstep through this system that will get you from where you are to where you want to go.
Well, that can takes us neatly on to one place, but before I go there, I'm just going to share the story
Sure.
of Ruben Gonzalez, who was in the Success Principles. And for those who don't know him, he's a 4-time Winter Olympian, about to do his 5th. I think he's trying to age 57 in the luge, which is head first, not head, no, it's feet
It's
first. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He's wonderful man, and he started doing door-to-door sales, which I think you did a long time ago. But the point was he wanted to talk to you. And obviously, you're on the other end. But he tells me the story, and he tells on the podcast of how he thought, well, I'm going to have my script. I'm going to call up, and he makes the call, and he gets your secretary, and he says, I'd like to speak to Jack Canfield, and explains why. And she passes you the phone, and thinking he's going to get a couple of minutes, you speak for an hour and a half, and he says to me, he says, I'm sure that secretary would have been fired immediately afterwards, because you don't just pass the phone to Jack Canfield. the point big is that he asked, is like he wrote his script, he knew what he's going to say, but he made the call, right? It's the difference between action and inaction, and success and lack of
Yeah.
success.
Well, one thing that's really interesting right now with the coronavirus, everyone being sheltered at home, we're not doing our workshop, so I have more time available, is how many people will call me and ask me to be on their podcast or their webinar or their summit or whatever. And I say yes. And then they'll tell me later, oh, my friend said, how did you get Jack Canfield? And I said, I asked him. I was literally thinking of putting up, taking out a Facebook ad that said, Jack Canfield is available. Because I think when you get to my level of success, people think there's no way they could possibly ever reach you.
Yeah.
And the ones who are, when I was in college, I was an undergraduate at Harvard, not because I was rich, because I wasn't, not because I was the smartest guy in school, because I wasn't. I played football, and they needed another end on the football team. And I was all state honorable mention in West Virginia, so I got into Harvard, which I graduated in the half of the class that made the top half possible, proving what I was just saying. But anyway, I noticed there were these beautiful, beautiful girls that went to Radcliffe, which is our sister college. And I'd see these really geeky, dumb-looking guys going out with them. And one day I asked this one girl, I said, how come you go out with all these guys that are not so cool? She said, they're the only ones that ask me. She said, guys like you are so afraid that we're going to say no, that if I don't go out with them, I don't go out with anybody. And that really kind of changed my approach to dating, because I was shy and I was afraid of rejection. And I went to an all-male boys' school when I was going to high school.
I did.
And so I wasn't comfortable around women the way guys who went to, school where it was more co-ed. And so, but I learned that some of the most beautiful people on the planet never get asked out because everyone's so afraid they're going to hear a no. And what I teach in my courses now, and what I teach in the Success Principles workbook as well, and we have exercises around it, is that if you ask somebody and they say no, nothing got worse. See, if you apply to Harvard and don't get in, you weren't in Harvard before you applied. You're not in Harvard after you applied. Your life didn't change. You know how to handle not going to Harvard. If I ask you to have dinner with me and you say no, I had no one to eat dinner with before I asked you. I have no one to eat dinner with after I asked you. My life didn't get worse. So people are afraid, I think, to experience something that's not all that bad, really. The only thing it changes is maybe your self-esteem. You go, gee, maybe I'm not that. But you have to start talking to yourself in a negative way. And that's controllable. That's up to you. You don't have to do that. When we did Chicken Soup for the Soul, I'm sure you know the story, we were turned down by 144 publishers. 144 no's. If I'd given up after 100, you and I would not be talking now, Andrew, because no one ever heard me.
I know, it's staggering. And I think Tim Ferriss says 5-hour work week. It was in the 40s or 50s that he was turned down by. So a couple of things in there. One is, as a coach, when people are intellectualizing, so we're talking about, both of us probably work with similar people, which is high achieving, high performers. It doesn't matter whether they're, they've got a corner shop or the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They're still driving and pushing. They're high performers. Is when they get into this, the logic brain state of I get it, I hear you, I understand it, but they're not processing it. They're still rationalizing it, and the key is to get them into that heart center where they begin to feel things rather than think things. So what techniques do you share with people to get them out of this, as I call it, the logic brain and the heart brain? We want them in the heart brain because that's when we can actually find red flags and intuition. So can you share a few of your techniques? I think it's really
Well,
important.
yeah, my favorite one is one that was developed by the Institute of Heart Math, the Heart Math Institute.
I
It's
know
called
them. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
coherence process,
Mm.
which I think you probably are familiar with. But basically, the way I teach it is you basically close your eyes and you inhale through your nose or your mouth, but you imagine that the air is coming in through your chest. So you identify where's my heart located. You focus on that for a moment just to get the physical sensation of where your heart is. And then as you're inhaling to the count of 6, a slow count of 6, you imagine the energy coming into your heart. And then as you exhale, you imagine it coming out through your heart. And it's an inhale of 6 and an exhale of 6, a slow count, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You want to do that for a couple of minutes. And then you begin to focus on some person, place, or thing that you appreciate. So for me, it's usually my wife or my dog, depending on how I've been talking to my wife lately. Sometimes the dog wins.
And
But
vice versa, probably. Yeah.
yeah, I know. So anyway, I just love them both so much. And so I just started appreciating and focusing on what I love about them. And I can even send them energy. Sometimes I'll imagine love going out from my heart to my wife and surrounding her. And usually I'll get a smile on my face. I know if I'm really in appreciation, I've got a smile on my face. Rhonda Byrne, who wrote the book The Secret, she said, I never wrote until I would do gratitude, until I had a tear coming down my face. Once I had a tear coming down my face, I knew I was in my heart, and then I would start to write. That's why The Secret has sold, hundreds of millions of books around the world. And so anyway, then what you can do after you're in that state for a while, now you can ask yourself a question. So you're into this kind of breathing meditation, if you will. And what they've learned with the quick coherence technique, and I use it in my mastermind groups with my high level executives I do, is think of a problem you have, think of a solution from your mind. Now what I want you to do, we'll do the quick coherence technique. You can actually use things to find out if they're in coherence or not. There's technology for that. And then when they're there, I say, now ask yourself the same question. They always get a better answer. They always get a higher order answer. It's so amazing. And I do it for myself. There was a time when my sister had gone into rehab as a result of having an accident. She got addicted to an opioid, much like Michael Jackson did when he burned his hair. And and she was in rehab. And when she came out, I think her brain got a little bit affected by the opiates, and she wasn't functioning well. And I was supporting her I was giving her about $10,000 a month just to live where she lives and all of that. And I didn't mind it at first. She was a co-author of all the Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul books. So I had made millions of dollars with her being a co-author on some of these books. And, but then I was starting to resent it after a while, like, how long is this going to go on? And it was part of me that wanted to like really kind of confront her and feeling used and so forth. And when I came over here after the breathing technique and the heart coherence technique, I realized it wasn't serving her to keep her codependent on me. And it changed the whole quality of the conversation. And I came from my heart in a whole different way than I would have, because I was taking heat from my wife about giving her so much money. Didn't want my sister to be out on the street. I didn't want her to cry. I was like caught in the middle. I no longer felt caught in the middle. I had to talk with my wife. I had to talk with my sister. Everything got resolved in a beautiful way. And I find the same thing's true with businesses. I'm trying to think if I shared this with you or the guy I was on with the last podcast.
Go for it anyway, Jack. It's okay.
But I think I tell you about the guy with the gym and he was renting his equipment now.
Yes. Yeah.
He got that from doing the heart math breathing exercise. And that's when he got the insight about how to do it. And so the reality is that you can come up with tremendous amounts of creativity from a much higher place. You're literally tapping in for sure to your prefrontal cortex. And more importantly, I think you're tapping into your intuition. And as you said, your heart. And we know from all the research, the heart's actually smarter than the brain is.
Yeah, well, I love heart math, and the method you just described is one which I learned not from them actually, even though I know them well. Is from Buddhist meditation. It's called loving. It's like loving kindness meditation. You just start your meditation from the heart, and I tell you what, you just have this huge smile, and you might have tears coming from down your cheeks, but it's from a place of pure joy and love.
Yeah. Do you know who Dawson Church is? The EFT universe?
No, but I'll have a look at them. Tell me
Yeah,
more.
you should interview him, and just so he
Yeah,
shares
yeah,
what he knows with your
brilliant.
listeners. Um, Dawson Church was one of the first people to really develop and popularize emotional freedom technique, tapping,
Right.
EFT tapping.
Yeah, tapping.
And he's created something called the echo meditation,
Mm,
ECO, like echo, like
mm,
ecology, where he combines tapping with the quick coherence process we just talked about,
yeah.
with also bringing in light through the top of the head, down to the heart, sending it out to the every atom in the universe,
Yeah.
bringing it back, sending it down into your own body. It's about a
Mm,
20-minute meditation. Here's what's valuable about it. He's done research that's published in peer-reviewed journals,
mm,
and he was, co-author with scientists, where they've taken your saliva and they test the immunoglobulin in your
mm.
saliva. And after doing this meditation for 7 days in a row, the immunoglobulins in your saliva increased by 113%. Now
Wow.
think about the coronavirus. The coronavirus mostly comes in through your nose
Mm,
and your mouth. It has to get from there into your lungs. And to do that, it has to go through your throat. Well, what's in there? Saliva. And
mm.
so if your immunoglobulins in your saliva are increased by 113%, you have a much greater chance of killing it before it ever even gets to your lungs. And your whole immune system is also going up a lot. This is the one that's easy to
Yeah, yeah.
test thing. So he teaches that. And I, I told my sister can be a hypochondriac and get really freaked out when these things happen. She did this for 5 days in a row. She called me yesterday. She said, Jack, I cry at the end of each of those meditations. I am so thankful that you taught me how to do that. So
That's beautiful.
definitely, you can go
I'll
go
check it
anywhere.
out. I mean, the amazing thing about this, and this is sort of going into a different conversation, is where experiential learning or healing, like China from the Taoist side, Ayurvedic medicine or Chinese energy medicine, is now being supported by Western science. So the process that you describe in the tapping and putting the energy through the seventh chakra through the top of the head. Is a process I used to beat cancer because there was no Western treatment for it because it was non-aggressive, but I just didn't want it in my body. And I used that in visualization techniques, and actually the tumor itself broke down and left at the end of a meditation. I've been spending an hour on a Vipassana silent retreat for an hour and a half on my prostate, and it actually left my body at the. So it is. What you're saying, Jack, is the body is its own best chemist, right? Isn't it? In everything that you've learned as well, is that we can self heal, but it requires a lot of practice and a lot of help.
It requires intention. We have a lot in common. I've been to a lot of Vipassana retreats as well with Jack Canfield and some of those people.
Yeah,
I have just come back from a month in India where I was in
beautiful.
an Ayurvedic healing center with a guy named Dr. Pankaj Naram, who was an amazing doctor, and lost 15 pounds. I got let go of all kinds of toxins in my
Yeah,
body, etc. Uh, but the body is its own healing center. Uh, Abraham, who channels through Esther Hicks, said something really interesting the other day. She said that when you get everything in the way, in other words, your body knows what to do. The
mm,
only thing that's getting in its way, the chiropractors tell us it's subluxation, so the nerve energy is not getting to the organs it's supposed to get to, which is why chiropractic is useful. But what she was saying, it's our thoughts, it's our
mm,
beliefs, it's our unresolved trauma, it's our anger, it's our resentments, it's our lack of forgiveness, it's our beliefs about the way things are or should be that get in the way. And when we release all that through the inner work that you teach people to do and I teach people to do and millions of others people do, thank God, you become a natural healer to yourself. There's one of my friends, Chunyi Lin, who is a Qigong master, talks about a healer in every house. And he says everyone's a healer. And basically we all can learn to be the healer for ourselves and the healer for our family. And he uses all the Chinese acupuncture points. In India, they talk about marma points, and
yeah,
Ayurvedic, similar, same thing. So this is a great time for all you listening out there and viewing us, is to know that you now have the time to do all this stuff that you kind of know to do, but you're not doing because you're thinking you don't have time. Most of you are not commuting to work anymore. So you've got all that time, and we should be doing this all along. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
well,
like,
we like to do it every day, but not everyone else does.
exactly. I call them the disciplines of success. And if you meditate, if you read uplifting things, if you read things, if you study to become better in your practice of what you do professionally, if you're spending time networking correctly, if you're spending time learning how to do internet marketing or be a better doctor, whatever it is. Tony Robbins has that phrase, C-A-N-I, constant and never-ending improvement, which he stole from the Japanese, which was Kenzai.
Yeah.
But the point being that we should always be getting better. I'm 75. Most people say I look like I'm 63 or something. My wife is 63, and most people think I look younger than she does.
Oh
And
dear, that's trouble.
yeah, I never say anything when people say that. But the truth is, I have forgiven everybody that ever did anything wrong to me. I've done every Byron Katie process you can do, where I've let go of any shoulds I have about how the world should be. I meditate every day. I do yoga. I eat well. I fast regularly. So if you do those things, they work,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a wonderful practice I was given on the last point about forgiveness by my Chinese energy master, which was any time in the day, it doesn't matter what time, it's up to you, is you go back through your life, and it could be present moment to when you were a child, and you apologize to everyone who you've hurt, whether mentally or by words, and you say, I apologize to you unconditionally and unequivocally, and you name them for all the loss and the damage and hurt I've caused you. I'm sorry. And there's no but, there's no equivocation, there's no but. And what happens is, when you start this process, and I said, well, Steve, I'm going to be 90% apologizing to everyone. And the other side of it, which is very important, is that you congratulate yourself for all the good deeds that you've done that day. And you reward yourself, because whilst we can be very good at forgiveness, we're very poor at forgiving ourselves, aren't we?
Yes, it's true. We're much better at acknowledging other people than we are ourselves. We're much better at forgiving other people than we are ourselves. So one of the exercises I teach in the Success Principles workbook is called the mirror exercise. What you're supposed to do every night is stand in front of the mirror and say to yourself three things. Number one, you appreciate yourself for all of your accomplishments that day. And I've talking to a psychiatrist recently who's very, very successful. And he says at the end of congratulating yourself, and he called it acknowledging yourself, at the end of acknowledging yourself, acknowledge yourself for acknowledging yourself. Because
Right.
most people don't do that. And whatever you're acknowledged for, you tend to increase and improve. So the second thing you do is you acknowledge yourself for any disciplines you kept that day. And the third thing is you acknowledge yourself for any temptations you didn't give into. So for me, it might sound like, Jack, you always start with your name. It calls your consciousness forward. Jack, I want to acknowledge you for the following things. Number one, you got up today. You did 3 podcasts. You did a really good job. You were really there. You were present with everybody. You got on a call for this essential oil company that you're involved with right now, because you're seeing how the essential oils are helping people stay calm and also be more virally resistant. You got your team really enrolled in that. I want to acknowledge you for writing about 5 pages on your new book, Choose Love, Not Fear. And I want to acknowledge you for doing your yoga, for doing all your vitamins and your herbs and all of that. And I want to acknowledge you for not staying up till 1 a.m. playing Words with Friends. And you always end by saying, I love you. So then you say, and Jack, I want you to know I really love you, and I appreciate you, and acknowledge you for acknowledging yourself and for loving yourself. It's something I learned when I was in India from a healer over there. He said, when you finish acknowledging yourself, take your right hand, pat your left shoulder 5 times, say, I acknowledge you, I love you, congratulations, good job. And as silly as that is, when I do that, I feel wonderful. It's like a little kid. Your dad's going, good job, kid, good job.
Yeah,
So
that's beautiful. I know there are a few other coaches who have a similar practice, but the thing is, and here's the other thing, Jack, is that all of us are taking information that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years. And I believe the truly authentic teachers and coaches acknowledge the origins of their learning, whereas
Right.
so we said the fakers out there are just saying it's all invented by them, but it wasn't. This is
Oh,
just humanity passing on our share of information.
you know what's fascinating? While I was over there, they taught me this exercise where to get really clear what you want, you take your right thumb and finger right on the point of the finger and you press
Mm,
really hard 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you ask yourself, what do I really want? Then you just hold that, or you can ask the question first and then you can press
mm,
6 times. And whenever I do that, I always get like two answers. One, every day recently, it's been happiness. And the other thing is I have this online training program where we train trainers. And I want 1,000 people to go through that training this year. So then what they said you do is visualize a white frame, like a picture frame
mm.
above your right eye. Well, I should probably put over here for the viewers because they're looking at my
Yeah.
really opposite. And then what happens is that you imagine what would you be seeing out through your eyes that would let you know you actually had achieved that. Well, I'd see, you know, a report on my computer screen from my staff, or I'd see a picture of like 1,000 faces all lined up on a Zoom call or something. And what would you feel and what would you be hearing? So, you know, that's basic stuff we've all been doing forever.
Mm.
Um, but then I came back and I thought, why upright? So I went back to my neuro-linguistic programming notes, my NLP training, and I realized that upright is where visual construct is. So if you're constructing something new that's never existed before, it goes upright. And
Mhm.
so they were teaching this. The guy that was teaching me this was in the lineage of doctors, Buddha's physician.
Mm.
This lineage of doctors from Buddha's physician for 2,500 years. He was trained by his master who lived to be 124. And here's this guy teaching me the stuff that they were teaching back 1,000, 2,000 years
Yeah.
ago. And what he said to me was really funny. He says, Jack, they're calling what I teach Ayurvedic medicine, alternative medicine. We've been teaching this for 2,500 years. Allopathic medicine is alternative method. That's only a couple hundred years old. That's what's really alternative. I thought
Yeah.
that was really fascinating.
That's beautiful. And so my teachers were from the Ayurvedic tradition and from the, I suppose, Taoist tradition. And I don't know how you, and I've had two businesses in Delhi in India. And India is like a spiritual home for me. It's a beautiful place. But I resonate slightly more with the Eastern tradition, or the Chinese tradition, because it's, the Indians like to talk, like they like to talk, and we're an logic brain, so we like to talk as well. But when I really need to learn, I need to feel it through the heart. And the Chinese philosophy is, you know, they work on you, they explain what they're doing, but when they need to talk to you, they sit you down, they pour you a cup of the black bao tea, and you know you're in trouble. It's like, now I've got to give you the lesson, which I
Well,
thought was what.
yeah, I mentioned Chunyi Lin, who's a
Yeah,
Chinese named Qigong
Qigong.
master. And he's been teaching free Qigong classes all through this coronavirus thing. And when you're standing there and you're moving your energy up and down, you know, like the universe is in me and I'm in the universe, he's always saying, smile. Smile is starting, what is it? Start my internal love engine. That's what SMILE means for him. And he's always saying, keep feeling the joy, keep feeling the joy. You know, so you're right. All the things I've ever done with the Chinese, you know, whether it's sticking needles in me or telling me to take yin chow when I have the flu or whatever, it's always worked. It's always
Yeah.
worked.
It's my morning practice is Qigong with my mantras. And one other thing I want to, because I know that there are some, in terms of, we're talking about learning, always talking about learning, accelerated learning. And from what I've discovered is the three methods of accelerated learning are affirmation, visualization, and journaling. Now, I know visualization is something which is very powerful because we've talked about that. And, you know, I visualized beating cancer, and we visualize, I know in the workbook, you also talk about visualizing the place where you want to get to. How do you feel? What do you see? What you're going to taste? What you're going to touch? Who's with you? That's, we can get into as well. But how important is journaling to you as well?
I think journaling is good. Every time, as a Harvard professor said, you know, everything is your life is run by your conversations. So when you're journaling, you're having a conversation with yourself, and it slows you down. One of the things I've learned as a writer is it's one thing to think about stuff and talk about it. It's another thing to write it, because when you start to write it, you begin to see where you're inconsistent, where things you're saying don't quite match up with each other. Also, I find that when I start writing, as a writer, and more than even just journaling, is that I am coming from my head and I'm just writing kind of what I think I should write. But after a while, something shifts, and then something starts to write itself through me. Like,
It's
I've even
channeling. Yeah.
yeah, I've even talked to novelists who say, I got stuck in this book. And one night I was having a dream, and the characters were saying the reason you're stuck is you're trying to write us saying things we'd never say. So the characters start to come alive inside of
Yeah.
you as you're tuning into that higher source of energy. So I think for me, I think affirmations and visualization and journaling are all critical. And we have in the Success Principles workbook a whole thing where we say we want you to journal every day and journal about the things we're asking you to do. For example, one of the exercises is called the daily review or the evening review. So at night you would say, what were you working on today? I like to give everybody and say, what quality would you like to be exhibiting or experiencing or expressing more at this time in your life? So it might be patience, it might be courage, it might be calmness, it might be love, it might be patience, whatever it might be. Now, at the end of the day, usually before you go in for dinner, I think it's a good time, because after dinner, we tend to get caught up on the TV shows and we forget to do the things we're supposed to do. But close your eyes and ask yourself the question, show me where I could have been more patient today, or show me where I could have been more courageous or more assertive, or whatever it is you're working on. And then what happens is you start to have memories of the day. Oh, I was in that line at the grocery store. We were standing 6 feet apart because we were social distancing. That person was counting out pennies, and I got really frustrated. Why don't I just use a credit card or pay with dollar bills? And so I wasn't very patient. And then like 2 or 3 of those things usually come. And then you ask yourself, now visualize how you would have liked to have been had you been cognizant of being patient as an intention. What that does is it puts a blueprint in your unconscious mind. So the next time you find yourself in that, you're more likely to be that way. Something Dr. Joe Dispenza has been talking about lately. He's one of my current heroes. I just think his work's so powerful. He said, we get caught up in the doing world. We're going to do this, this, and this, and that's going to get us from where we are to where we want to be. And he's saying, and I agree with him, spend more time working on the being world, because if you be that in that time and space that's outside of time and space, in other words, there is no time, there is no here, there is no there is just now. Basically what happens is you can change in an instant, just like that. People have spontaneous remissions, like your cancer went away. You said, I was aware after a certain meditation, it just kind of was dissolving and leaving my body.
Physically left my body as well.
Yeah. You were aware, and if you felt it, and it happened. And it's like most Western doctors go, what? So
yeah.
So basically, all I'm just saying to finish off the little technique is, if you do that every day with a quality or a behavior, like drink more water. Where could I drunk more water today? If you want to work on that level, that little tool of reflection, and then you journal about it. So journaling is critical. It brings up stuff you weren't aware of. All of a sudden you're talking about your fears or your dreams, or you're having insights. I always get deeper when I journal than if I just think. It always works out that way.
It's interesting because I teach that is for people to begin to wonder to discover their triggers for their stress behavior and triggers for patterns, because people go to work and they commute to work, or not at the moment, but they do commute to work, and something happens and they flare up and they get agitated. And then if you go back and look through the journal of what you've been doing, say in the week before that, you realize that the event that triggered the flare up had nothing to do with the boss saying, where's my project? It's to do with something you happened probably 4 or 5 days later. But once you begin to understand the patterns and the triggers, you can become more self-aware of those and create more energy around things which support you and don't support you. I mean, there's a pathway to all of this, isn't there?
Yes. Yeah, it starts with awareness. Without awareness, there's no chance of changing your behavior. So it's awareness plus risk-taking, because everything you do that's new, that's not a habit of what you've done before, feels like you're out of your comfort zone, feels awkward, feels risky. So we have to be willing to take the risk to do something new, to step out of our, Joe Dispenza talks about breaking the habit of being yourself, because we get addicted to who we are. We get addicted to the way we feel. Even if you have road rage at 5 o'clock, your body gets addicted to that wash of chemicals when you get angry at 5 o'clock.
Mm.
There was a period where I was eating peanuts every night at 10 o'clock. I swear to God, I would just have this craving for peanuts because I tend to write at night. I write from around 8 o'clock until midnight.
Mm.
And I found out that if you do a lot of mental thinking, there's something in peanuts that actually feeds the brain. Now, it also feeds the belly, which was not good. So I was getting fat.
A high fat. Yeah, they're high fat.
I found out there were other supplements that would give me the same brain food without putting on weight around my stomach. But my body got addicted to
Mm.
getting those peanuts at a certain time. It was almost like, now it's time for the 5 o'clock cocktail that people have if they're an alcoholic. And so we want to step out of what we're normally doing and do something new, but it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel uncomfortable for a
Mm.
while. Like everybody listening or watching, you can fold your hands like this. And what you do is then notice which thumb's on top. So my left thumb's on top. Which thumbs of yours on top, Andrew?
They said, my left thumb's on top as well.
Your left thumb's on top. Okay. Now, when I'm doing live seminars, I make a joke. I say all the people with the right thumbs on top, these are the sexier people. All the people with the left thumb on top, they're the thinkers. People with the two thumbs together like that, they just think they're sexy. Have a little fun with it. But here's the deal. Fold your hands one more time. Just fold them one more time.
Yeah.
The same thumb is on top, right?
Sure.
Okay. Now, unfold your hands. So move don't just move the thumbs. Move all the fingers up a notch. So the other thumb's on top.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Feels awkward. Feels strange. Feels weird. Feel yucky. Now, I'll ask people, I'll say, well, what would you like to do? And they say, well, put it back the other way. How's that feel? Better, comfortable. And that's why most people are stuck in life. They get addicted to feeling comfortable. So you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. If you were to hold your hands in this new position for about 3, 4, 5 minutes, it would stop feeling uncomfortable. So we have to go through and push through the discomfort long enough in order to have the uncomfortable become comfortable. If you ever learned to drive a stick shift car when you were a teenager,
sure,
that was uncomfortable. You had to push the clutch and the brake and the gas and let it out right and all that stuff. And now after about a month of that, you could do it in your sleep. You had your arm around your girlfriend, you're double clutching through the steering wheel, you got good at it, right? Yeah. But the first couple of times it was really, really awkward. First time you asked for a date, first time you ever gave a speech, so we have to be willing to be uncomfortable long enough so it becomes comfortable. It always does. The nervous system will readjust itself.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Jack, I don't know how much time we have. I've had you for an hour already. I'm not sure how much longer I have with you.
We started about 5-10 minutes after, so
okay.
Then you can wrap it up.
A couple of final questions for you. You mentioned spontaneous remission. Now, I remember reading Quantum Healing by Deepak Chopra, and he wrote that in the 80s, and I think I read it 2 years ago because my own experience was. But we would talk about belief and fear. The interesting statistic he was giving was that many people, I think it was something like 30% of everyone who experiences spontaneous remission, which is just there is no Western medicine treatment available and they've self-healed effectively or whatever modality they've used, is that 30% of those people revert back to the original illness because they don't believe I don't believe it's a miracle, it's just work, but they don't believe in their own ability to heal the illness they had. So they go back, they revert back to the original illness. And in all the teaching that you do, how do we prevent that step?
Well, I think the thing that you have to start with is the concept that a belief is a choice. A belief is just a thought you think over and over and over and over and over and over and over until it seems like it's just the way it is. If you grow up in a Catholic home, more than likely you're going to be Catholic. If you grow up in a Jewish home, more than likely you're going to be Jewish because you've been exposed to that set of thoughts over and over and over and over. If you grow up in a Muslim home, you believe in the Quran, you believe in jihad, all that kind of stuff. I think people misinterpret jihad. Jihad, my point of view, meant you fought off the infidel inside yourself, which was your negative thoughts, your limiting beliefs, your anger, and all that kind of stuff. And now we project it out onto the world, make the infidel the enemy. So we're now killing each other over stupid things. Christians did the same thing when they went down to Jerusalem and killed all the Arabs and so forth. So it goes both ways. But the point being that a belief is simply a set of thoughts you believe over and over. So if you want to have a new belief, you have to reinforce that with information. You have to reinforce it with repetition. That's why repetition of affirmations are good. Repetitions of affirmations with music and movement. That's why You get people out there chanting Hare Krishna in the streets. They're moving, they're singing, they're chanting over and over. It logs into the system because it's going in auditory, visual, and kinesthetic.
I've
As you
done
know,
one of those, and it was really powerful.
I did that. I went to a conference once, and all these people were chanting. I thought, what the hell? I don't care. I'm going to do it too, and I got totally high off it. It was
Yeah,
really
so did I.
I'm not going to shave my head and wear orange. I've got other things to do. I call myself a plainclothes consciousness commando. I need to dress up so I can go into a bank and run workshops. But the point being that, there was a study done where a guy took a drug. They said it was a miracle drug. It was healing people. He got healed. They then found out the drug wasn't really as effective as they thought it was. He got sick again. They then found out that the drug really was working in a new trial, so he got healthy again. Then they found out it didn't work, and he died. So
Oh God.
he was responding to things outside of him instead of his own internal experience.
Mm.
So I think belief change is important. The thing that's most important is the beliefs we have that we don't know we have. They're unconscious. They were formed in our consciousness between the ages of 3 and 8 years old.
Mm.
And so what happens is we're walking around. I always tell people, if you got on a plane and you saw a 6-year-old walking onto the plane to be the pilot, how would you feel? Most people go, not so good. But the reality is most of us are walking around with our life being piloted by a 6-year-old.
Mm.
And so I would suggest, people don't do that.
Yeah.
Can you still hear me? Did my sound go away?
You're still there, Jack. I still got
Okay,
you.
good. I just
You're
noticed
good.
my microphone was on mute or something.
Okay.
I just want to say one thing before we start to wrap up here, because it relates to this limiting beliefs. One of the things I've been doing lately is going online and offering a free hour of belief identification of a limiting belief and the releasing of that belief and replacing it with a positive belief.
Mm.
It's about a 30 to 40-minute process with build up and all that. And I've been doing it sometimes with 3,000 people on the call. And I'm offering that over the next couple of months as a freebie to the world. So if anyone wants to do that, you can just go to jackcanfield.com and just sign up to be on my mailing list, and you'll get mailings for that. So just jackcanfield.com. Or if you want to order my workbook, you can go to thesuccessprinciplesworkbook.com /order. And then you not only get the workbook, you can order it through all the usual online places, but you'll also get about a week ago, I did an online program for about 1,500 people called the Success Principles Masterclass, where I spent an hour and a half going through the principles in the book and teaching, not just, like we've talked about things, but I really led people through it. This rarely happens on a webinar or a Zoom call. We started with 1,500 people, and we ended up an hour and a half later with 1,460 people.
That's
it was
incredible.
Hardly drop off. It is incredible. So I just offer that to your listeners. And if you find that Amazon's out of the book, or whoever you order from in Australia or around the world, because I know you're international,
Yeah.
You can download the Kindle version. The digital versions are always available. So
Brilliant. Well, I encourage everyone to go and do that. I think there's a wonderful training. Thank you for offering that, Jack. And that will be in the show notes as well. And just as we wrap up, passion and purpose. Now, obviously, I know you talk a great deal about this in the books.
Mm-hmm.
One of the words that I interject before that is mission, because passion and purpose is well used. And a mission is having a goal of getting from A to B. So it could be that you go to the job for 18 months to prepare yourself for being an entrepreneur or running a side gig, but it's one of the, it can be anything, but it's a methodology of getting yourself ready to make the next transformation. So even if you don't know what your purpose is, that doesn't matter today, but we're going to set a trajectory to go and find that. So how important is that to you in your teaching as well?
I think it's very important. I think a lot of people, because purpose is usually the second chapter of everything I do. First is 100% responsibility. If you don't start there, you're toast.
It has to be accountability. Yeah, number one.
Yeah. If you know your purpose, you can start to create a vision to fulfill that purpose, goals to fulfill that vision, etc. And the way you're using mission, I think it's important to say this. Many people will get into my programs and they say, I just can't figure out my purpose. Now in the workbook, we put 3 different ways to do it. Most people, 90% of the people can. Even if you don't know your purpose, and you're saying this, I think, it's okay. Go to
Absolutely.
the next thing that feels like it's either on course for you or it feels joyful. A lot of people say you know your purpose if you follow your joy, because your joy is a feedback mechanism to tell you that you're on purpose, you're on course. And so for me, I had no idea when I started out being a high school teacher that I would end up being this world leader and doing the master book series and running all these companies I have, etc. No way I would have done it. But the point being that if I just do what's in front of me next that I'm attracted to do, and if I realize sometimes, like Tim Ferriss, I'm sure you know him, you mentioned him
Yeah.
earlier, I don't know if you've interviewed him, but he decided he wanted to run a company. And so he said, I'm going to go work for a company in Silicon Valley. I'm going to do it for about a year or two in order to learn how to run a company.
That's
So
his
that's
mission.
great.
That's a mission. Yeah.
That was a mission he had at the time, And as a result of that, he learned a lot about Silicon Valley. He learned a lot about running a company. He actually hired me, didn't hire me, he didn't pay me, but he asked me to be his mentor on how to publish a book. So I did everything to show him how to do that. He's since outperformed me with this 4-hour work week.
He's
I saved
amazing. The
life.
strategy there was phenomenal. So if that's
Yeah.
your strategy, Jack, that's amazing. Thank you.
No, I think he really came up with the blog idea, and he went just into the blog world in a way that was, I learned from him after that. It was really great. But before that, I taught him a lot of stuff. And the reality is sometimes you go, I'm going to go do this in order to do that. I'm going to coach high school football so I can become a college football coach, but I'm going to win a few state championships first along the way, Then we see college coaches becoming pro coaches, and then they become ESPN commentators, whatever it might be. One of my colleagues, her son went to college to study. He wants to be a sportscaster. And so he went and he studied sports, he studied journalism, he studied how to do TV and radio and so forth. Actually, what he's doing now, he's actually running gaming programs online for all these 20-year-olds. He's making more money now than he ever made because all these kids are home from college because they're sequestered. He's making a fortune. So you do what's in front of you and follow your heart, do what you love. Think of the mission as something that's going to get you from where you are to where you want to be. It may not be the total end game, but it's the next step. One of my friends said, the thing to do is figure out where you want to go. Ask yourself, what are the 3 logical next steps that are easy to do? Well, I want to be a country western singer. Great. Go buy a guitar. Go take a guitar lesson and then get a computer and go online and learn how to read chords. Those are obvious things. No big deal. We can all take the next 3 obvious steps.
Brilliant, Jack. Thank you. I was going to ask you if you wanted to share a final message, but you sort of just did that, unless you have another one you'd like to share.
2 things. I just want to remind people I do have a train-the-trainer program. You can get certified to be a Canfield Success Principles trainer online. Just go to jackcanfield.com. It's all there. What I always like to end with is saying this. You have everything you need to do anything you want. So you may have to partner up with some people. You may have to learn some new skills. You may have to get a license or a degree you don't have, but there's nothing you can't do. If you feel it in your heart and you're drawn to do it, my advice, having counseled millions of people around the world, is do it. Don't wait. Someone once said, when was the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. What's the second best time? Now.
I love that. Jack, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. And then there are other places we could go, and maybe we'll do that another day. That would be wonderful. But thank you so much for sharing your time.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Take care.
Okay, I'm going to end it there.